Cashamaniacs.
Geo Gearheads.
Welcome to episode 409 of the Geo Gearheads. This is our Randomize XCI. I like that. It's like our cross-country initiative. I think that's what you had come up with for that, isn't it, Chris?
Something like that. Yeah. It's not quite Star Wars, but yeah, XCI.
Ooh, that sounds like a interesting car from like Jaguar or something.
Oh, come experience the XCI, the ultimate in luxury with fine Corinthian leather.
You know, there's a movie called Crazy People that is so 80s, but it's available on Amazon Prime now.
Oh, is that the one? The Volvos are boxy but good.
Yes, boxy but good. And you remember the slogan for the Jaguar, I'm sure.
No.
So that immediately came to mind because I still haven't had a chance to rewatch it.
Mm-hmm.
But we were talking to the kids about it. It's like, okay, we got to watch this again. And it was available nowhere. But now it's on Amazon Prime.
Oh, good.
Always the case.
Yeah, that I remember it being a fun movie, but beyond boxy but good, I don't remember.
There was a lot of that kind of stuff in there.
Yeah, there was.
And most of it was, I shouldn't say most, but a good portion of it was inappropriate. But Dudley Moore, Daryl Hannah, and Paul Reiser are three of the actors in that movie that come to mind.
Yeah, and they thought, these people are telling it like it is. We should start a advertising company based on this.
Well, they actually Dudley Moore actually worked for the advertising agency, went crazy, and accidentally his boards got published and were a hit. So hence we have the whole premise for the movie.
Yep.
Where the insane asylum becomes the which is not appropriate, but the insane asylum becomes the ad agency.
I'm not all about going back and rewriting history because it's not appropriate now. It was appropriate at the time.
I don't think it was appropriate then. Yep. And that was part of why it was funny.
Oh, well,
happy Halloween, Chris.
Happy Halloween. Daryl, great mask you're wearing tonight.
I thought it really fit the bill.
Yeah. It's very scary, but yet appropriate for this evening. Just don't wear it next week.
No, don't worry, I won't.
Okay. Well, since this is a randomized show, we've got a lot of things to read tonight. I don't know if we'll get through it all, but we are going to give it our best shot. The old college try. And I don't understand why, because, once you're out of college, I think you work harder. But let's start with an email from Limax. He says, just a quick note. When Pilfer Bear and I are out caching, she lets me write the DNF logs for us. She feels like she's still not experienced enough to write a DNF log. She's currently at 93 caches found. That's a great idea. I mean, but at the same time, I would have her write them just for that experience.
Sure, but as a inexperienced finder, people don't give it as much weight. So I understand why she doesn't do that. And this is going back to our logging episode last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. I'm losing track of time again. But you don't want to have everyone in the group write those DNF logs.
Right.
So, this to me makes the most sense. And she should write the logs occasionally, especially if it's like the third or fourth one on the cache.
Mm-hmm.
Give her the opportunity, I think, Limax. She'll appreciate it, and you'll be happy when she has enough that she can do all those for you.
Ooh.
Let's move on to an issue that I found with iOS 13 and Cachely. Last Saturday, I went to a Haunt in Ham, which is the name of the event. It's a Halloween-themed event with new caches, and they did the usual thing, which is here's the GPX file. We ran into a problem with the iOS 13 users where they could not get it to load. Now, I wrote to Nick and got an answer, and this is what he had said. This is an iOS 13 specific issue where Apple changed the behavior of how apps handle files. I have talked with Apple about this issue in length, and the problem is that GPX files do not have a standard UTI that Apple recognizes. Because of this, some users can see the open in option for Cachly and others cannot. This is caused by having other apps on your phone that also support GPX files and therefore being in conflict. It's pretty frustrating for me as I don't have any control over this. The workaround for users not seeing the open in option is to first zip the GPX file, and Cachly will always be able to open a zip file.
Oh, interesting.
So this is actually not quite the problem that we ran into. So I did give him a little bit more information, did a little bit more troubleshooting. And what we had was when you tried to open the GPX file, which is a lot more difficult in iOS 13 to begin with, it would actually like fail. It never completed. It just hung. And we're talking 13 caches. We were at, I think, 20 minutes on one of the phones before we just force quit.
Okay.
So I tried the same thing Monday morning with my iPad while I was waiting for other things to happen at work. Tried to reproduce it, and I discovered something.
Do say.
If I did the import and quit it, went back and did the same thing, it worked. So I don't know what's going on with that, but that might be something to try if you are having the problem.
So do you have to force quit the app in between and then do it again?
No. Well, yes, you do if you force quit if it's hanging.
Okay.
But there is an update to the app that just installed on my phone this evening, so I haven't had a chance to try it with that one.
Well,
Johnny Cash 313 says he was also trying to do Hamlet, but the rain was a little much for him. And yeah, I did not find any of the caches. It was a little too rainy.
That's a shame. I'm just looking because I want to say I just installed 5.2.11. Oh, I guess that was yesterday. So
Yeah.
prior to that one, I have always put it on my phone that my phone is not a very good GPS. You know,
Right.
It's got me moving around. In the last couple of Cachly updates, I don't know if it's Cachly, but I notice it across my entire phone, and I have not upgraded my iOS to 13. I'm still sitting at, was it 12.4.1? Whatever the current version is.
That doesn't sound right to me, but something like that.
I'm going to look.
Yeah, I think it's a .3 is the current.
It has been rock solid. So I can't explain why. 12.4.1.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now the workaround that we actually ended up using at the event, at Haunted Hamlet, is I'm still on 12 because there's no way I'm updating to 13 right now. It's getting a little better, but yeah, it's
13.1 fixed some glitches, 13.1.2 or something.
Well, we're on 13.2 or 13.2.1.
Anyway, the one after 13.1, I think it was actually 0.3, reintroduced some of the same glitches, but fix the security holes. So it's been a mess. I wouldn't suggest anyone update to iOS 13 if you have a choice. I hear a lot about dropped calls with full bars. You've got great connection, but it's just dropping the calls randomly. Yeah. So, and it's interesting. It seems like Apple does not have a standard UTI. That's a urinary tract infection. That's the way I read it. So they have a standard UTI.
All right. Well, you're having some other issues, Chris, with the iOS app.
Yeah. So just yesterday, I was doing a Where I Go, and I was warned by a couple of friends that the Where I Go for iOS, the app, has not been updated to meet the new geocaching.com login specs. So logging in from the app is problematic at best. It's better if you can go find the cartridge and then open that in the Where I Go app. Now, you can still log into the Where I Go pages, and that works fine with your geocaching.com credentials. And then download the cartridge to your phone, long press and tell it to open in Where I Go, and that seems to work well. Once I was in the app, the cartridge worked just fine. But you used to be able to go into the app, search, and look for the cartridges and download them right there. That's problematic at best.
Yeah, and the way thing that I think happened is they've changed their method of sign-on. It was, if I remember correctly, OAuth based, and I'm assuming now it's like SAML or something like that. But they basically just changed the underlying structure, so Where I Go doesn't update. And when you start talking about this pre-show, I remembered, yeah, I've been having problems with this for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
This is not new. Back at Midwest GeoBash, I had to actually download, and what I did was I downloaded the cartridges into Dropbox.
Okay.
I have a shared Dropbox that Renee can get into as well, and that way we could both open it from within Dropbox into the Where I Go app. So it was a workaround that we used because we did not get it to open correctly out of Safari either.
Interesting.
It just crashed, and I don't remember what it was, but yeah, we had to do an intermediate step then.
Yeah, hopefully the author of the Where I Go app will update that. But he seems to be MIA at the moment.
Indeed. All right, so let's move to Indiana Daryl, who emailed us. On your last episode, GPSR picking 2, there was mention of caching within an iPhone. What external battery cases are you talking about? I'm looking for possibilities of extending my geocaching playtime with my iPhone while on the trail. All right, so we're going to pause for a moment, and
okay, well, Daryl dropped himself out. Hi, Daryl.
Yes,
How are
I
you?
did. I clicked the wrong freaking button. So yeah, I use the Apple Smart Case, and it's available for a number of the models, but not all of the models. And my model is currently not available anymore, which I have the iPhone 8. But if you have the 10R, 10S, or 10S Max, they had been making those, and there's rumors supported by good evidence that the cases for the 11 series phones are coming shortly.
I personally use, I'm a big advocate now of the thin USB batteries that are the size of, the smaller phones. They're smaller than the big phones, the Plus. And I have a very durable USB cable from my favorite place, monoprice.com. Monoprice, if you're listening, you need to become a sponsor of the show. This is a 4-inch durable USB to lightning cable. I also have a thin battery that does wireless charging. So, I can just keep those two together in my hand, and that's what I do.
Yeah, so there's a number of different options. I'm fully behind using the standardized batteries because they work for everything. But in this case, I've had the iPhone 7 and 8 batteries, and even though they're not really supported, they were somewhat interchangeable, so I could continue using them. But I killed the external battery packs in about a year or so, a little bit more. But the reason I got these to start with is because it did the lightning pass-through for the headphones.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wanted that feature. And I really didn't want to spend the money for it, but now that I have it, I'm hooked on it. I love it as a case, even though it's a little bit ugly and not the nicest thing to.
That prides itself on design.
Yeah,
that's not great design.
No, it really isn't, but it is so functionally awesome. It's got the grippy silicone that isn't too grippy, but grippy enough. You know what I mean?
You can still slip it into your pocket, but you're not going to drop it as you're walking.
It's not the easiest thing to get into your pocket even because it is a little bit too grippy for that. But it's not so grippy that it's like sticking on everything. It doesn't rub off easily like a lot of the other coatings do. And it's soft and squishy, so it absorbs some of that impact without.
Hi, Daryl. Oh,
Anyway. So yeah, the big thing though is it talks with the phone
mm-hmm.
and doesn't put the phone into plugged in mode.
Oh, really?
Right. So it doesn't turn the radios up. It doesn't start checking email and stuff it's frequently. So even though it's a smaller battery, it doesn't ramp up the radios in the processor. So I don't have the overheat problems that I have with some of the other batteries. And even though it's a smaller battery, it lasts longer. And they play nice together because it knows when the external battery is overheating and slows down charging and all this kind of stuff. Now, the newer ones for the 10 series phones have the Qi charging in them. So you can charge them, leave it on your phone, throw it on Qi charger, plug it in, whatever you want to do. It's awesome. So my coworker grabbed one and absolutely loves it. He is sold on it, and he came from a very good battery case that cost him almost as much, and he switched because he liked what he saw from mine.
Wow.
So that's about the best recommendation I can give for the Apple case. It's too expensive, but it's worth it. That's basically what it comes down to.
Those two phrases don't fit together.
No, they really don't, but it seems to hold true.
Okay. All right. He goes on to say,
oh, okay, I'll let you read it then.
I've heard about the Ant Plus adapters before, but could you go into specifics? What brand works with iPhone and Garmin chirps? Can you program the Garmin chirps with it or only search for them? The reason I ask is I have a Colorado 400T and it only searches for the chirps. I can't program a chirp with it. So, Daryl, you've had far more experience in the Ant Plus adapters for iPhone than I have.
Which doesn't say much. But to give you an idea, this is
one.
Right? Yeah. Well, I actually had like 3 or 4 of the keys, the actual modules, because I was using it for my cycling, because all of the cycling computers and heart rate monitors and all that kind of stuff ties together through Ant. So, or Ant Plus, actually, I guess. But I had a few of them, and only one of them actually works. So we talked about this way back on episode 95.
And that was over 300 episodes ago.
Yes. So it gives you an idea how old it is. And at that point, you had to use the Wahoo key, which I don't believe is available anymore.
Wahoo!
With the Lightning adapter, if you were lucky enough to have a Lightning-enabled phone.
I was going to say the Wahoo key I think you gave me was 30-pin.
Yes, they're all 30-pin.
Oh, okay.
So you had to get the
30-pin.
They might have Lightnings available that I haven't seen, but a few years ago when I looked last, they were still all 30-pin with, we had to go get that adapter from Apple for $30. And then there was an app called GeoBeacon, which also seems to be unavailable anymore. I think that one went unsupported years ago. So at this point, I don't have any good information for you, Indiana Daryl. Sorry.
Wow. I search for Wahoo and Ant Plus, and all I get is the 30-pin.
Yeah.
Adapter.
Yeah, and GeoBeacon went unsupported, I believe. I couldn't find anything on that either. So I think unless someone else has some more information, and by all means, write us and let us know. Email, whatever you want to do, because we'd love to figure out how to do that. But I really think Ant Plus on the phones is a thing of the past.
Mm-hmm.
There's just not enough people who want to do it to make it economically viable, I'm afraid. The only thing that people want the Ant Plus for on the phones is for that fitness stuff, and most of that has gone to Bluetooth LE. Ant Plus was pre-Bluetooth LE.
Okay.
So now that you have Bluetooth LE, everyone's going to smartphones. Might as well switch because that's what everything uses now. And I think that's what's happened to it.
I am looking at. I don't think this is just for a Wahoo mount. I don't think it's for Ant Plus. So no, I'm looking at an adhesive strip here. Nothing. I can't find anything with Ant Plus and iPhone.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. So
and even if there was a physical adapter, I don't know of any software anymore that will interface with it. Obviously, if they make a physical adapter, they're going to still make the software.
Well, not necessarily, because it could be for the fitness stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fitness stuff might have to tie into it directly. You know, like it might even go into the health kit stuff. So, you know, your cycle computer or whatever ties to health kit on the phone. You don't need an app for it. It just ties in as an exercise device.
Okay. I did find it's still Wahoo, WAHOO, has a Bluetooth to Ant module.
Oh, interesting.
So you can connect to your cadence, your speed and cadence Ant Plus enabled sensors and Bluetooth on the phone.
Nice.
$40.
Oh, that's not too bad, but you have to charge it and everything. So, but yeah, the question becomes, is there software? So if anyone wants to figure that out for us before the next randomized show, you know, drop us all that info and we'll include it then. But now let's move on to Tick Magnet, who posted a comment on YouTube. I've been having the same problems with my iPhone 10 and Cashly, so I went back to using my GPSR. My location would freeze on the road or jump around. Glad to hear I'm not the only one having this issue. Thanks, Chris.
Whew. Yeah. So, and since then, my GPS has been my phone has been rock solid. I've been carrying the GPS and the phone next to each other, and I don't know. There was one day I couldn't get either. It was a foggy, kind of rainy day, and I've had that here. You know, if there's heavy fog and rain, it shouldn't, or mist, not necessarily rain. It shouldn't be enough to deflect the signals as much as you think, but I could not get my phone or my dedicated GPSR to get enough satellites to get me a location. So
that's really annoying.
Yeah.
There was a joke in there that I totally missed about your phone being rock solid. And did you brick it?
Oh, did I brick it? No, it's still working. But
so it's not rock solid.
No, sorry. The GPS capability of the phone is performing, you know, as I would expect it to. And I can't say that I've done any updates. Now, Cashly, of course, has updated. And Cashly did some, I mean, Nick at Cashly is fantastic with updates. If you let him know, hey, I noticed that when I was using my navigation app along with Cashly, they would kind of fight over who had control of the GPS and what location they were pointing to. So as I was, you know, I'd switch over to Cashly, it was still pointing to, you know, like my parking coordinates. I'm like, well, I know that's not right. And if I close the navigation app, Cashly, oh, you want this? Yeah, I got it. Here are the coordinates you really want. He fixed that, and I've not had that problem since. So.
Awesome. All right, let's move on to the next part of his YouTube comment, which is on a recent trip to Northwest Montana. My Garmin GPS Map 66i did a pretty good job. Super accurate, and it was nice to send messages to friends letting them know I was camping. I don't know what problems others have been having so far. I'm happy with it.
Great. Now, the Garmin GPS Map 66i is the latest GPS and InReach unit combined.
Well, it's the first of the full GPSRs with an InReach. I was going to say transmitter, but that's not really right. because it's transmit and receive.
Yeah. So that allows you to do satellite communication through your smartphone, link it Bluetoothly. Is that a word?
Sure, why not?
You understood it in a sentence, so thus it is a word.
Yeah. Well, and you can also still use preset messages and get the SOS. So really, it's more of a personal locator beacon than it is the satellite communicator, but it does both.
Yeah. So even when you're way out of cell range, you can still send cell-like signals.
Well, messages, yeah.
Messages.
Yeah.
It's not good enough to make a phone call on, but you can message.
All right. Why don't you read the next one? Because it's from a fellow Pacific Northwester.
Wacko Bear. It's like Whack-A-Mole, but Wacko Bear. No, it's different. I found this podcast when recently starting caching again after stopping for a while. When I started caching, you had to flip your phone to calibrate the GPS. I remember that. So I got a GPS, but it was not very good. There was no way to connect to it to download waypoints. Everything was hand entered, and it would tell you how far to the waypoint, but there was no arrow, so you had to estimate based on the increase or decrease from your distance from your location. For either of them, there was not a clear view of the sky or even clouds in the sky. You were hard pressed. I'm sorry, for either of them, if there was not a clear view of the sky or even clouds, you were hard pressed to be able to find it. And living in the Pacific Northwest, clouds were given 10 to 11 months out of the year. And I always say, everything's moving towards the cloud. Well, here in the Pacific Northwest, we've got a lot of cloud, but that's different. Now let's get back to the email. When I started caching again, I decided I wanted to do puzzle caches, but was finding very few that I was thinking of at the time of puzzles, crosswords, Sudoku, and such. And I was looking for help when I came across the episodes with Jennifer of Team MAJK, Magic. I've forgotten. Does she say Team Magic?
No, it's Team AJK, but we've named it Magic. Team Magic.
Okay. Then I started listening to more episodes and recently went back and started with episode 1. And to take another break from the email, we're sorry about episode 1. We've gotten much better in the last 400 episodes.
Yeah, but probably a lot less informative.
Oh, maybe.
Those were some dense shows with tons of information.
And, the episodes on batteries are probably still valid.
Yeah, there's been a few changes, but for the most part, we don't have to redo them because it's good information.
Yep. Okay, he goes on to say, it's very weird to hear you talk about the iPhone 3 and 4 and the release of the 5 when the 11 is just coming out. To my questions, I have a question for both Daryl and Chris. First, Daryl, I know you like your eTrex 30. I was listening to episode 406, GPSR picking 2. You seem to like the eTrex 32 for a supplement option. However, I found the eTrex 30X for $160 on Amazon. I was wondering if you thought it was worth it to spend the extra $140 for the 32. I was planning on supplementing my mainly urban caching and some state park caching, no cell signal, that requires hiking. I'll let you answer that, Daryl.
All right. So basically, no, stick with the 30X if you can still get them and they're that cheap. The caveat is make sure it's a new unit or from a reputable source. If you're getting a used or a refurb unit, you don't necessarily know what you're getting, and there's probably not a warranty on it. So you might be out the $160. So as long as it's good, go for it. I mean, you might have found someone who has some backstock or something like that they're trying to clear out. By all means, go for it. Even a used one, if it's cheap enough, is probably worth doing if it's from a reputable source.
He goes on to say, now for Chris. I live in Kent, Washington. I was wondering if there was any power trails around this area. I didn't really know about power trails before I stopped caching, and I'd like to try one. But I don't want to travel too far. Well, there aren't, I was looking. There aren't any really true power trails in the Kent area. Now, there are the Sioux Creek series that are pretty good. if you're in Kent, I would consider doing the Valley Cities Geo Tour. There's 40 caches, I believe. You can get them done in a day with a little bit of driving. Really, for the area, you have to head south and east to find true power trails. So, that means heading out towards the Roy area. I know there's some out there. And East Graham, I believe. So I'll have to look into that and get back with you. I don't have those right off the top of my head.
All right. And I personally would rather do the Geo Tour over a power trail anyway.
Yeah, the Geo Tour, you're going to get a coin for it.
Yeah. That said, you definitely want to do some power trails and experience it.
Mm-hmm.
That's always cool.
I'm trying to find my coin. I don't see it right off the top.
All right.
I'll come back to it.
Yeah. While you're doing that, I'm going to go to the email from Mike D, who emailed us with the Apple Insider story about Apple advising iPhone 5 owners to update to iOS 10.3.4 by November 3rd. And I found a similar article that Apple is warning old iPhones, iPads could hit the GPS rollover problem. So we'll include both those links in the show notes, but anyone who owns an older model iPhone or iPad could experience a device breaking problem on November 3rd, according to Apple. Starting just before, and this is coming from a Apple article, starting just before midnight UTC on November 3rd, 2019, some iPhone and iPad models introduced in 2012 and earlier will require an iOS update to maintain accurate GPS location. This is due to the GPS time rollover issue that began affecting GPS-enabled products from other manufacturers on April 6, 2019. Affected Apple devices are not impacted until just before midnight UTC, November 3rd, 2019. So the rollover bugs continue.
And we thought they were just...
it was April. It should be done.
Right.
But yeah, so it might not be a easy thing to use one of those old devices as a standalone if you have not updated.
Yeah. Okay, our next story. This comes from Mac Rumors. iOS 13's dark mode extends OLED iPhone battery life, test confirms. In an experiment shared on YouTube, Phone Buff used robotic arms to interact with two fully charged iPhones running iOS 13, one running in dark mode and the other in light mode. The robots work their way through various native and third-party apps, all of which support iOS display modes, until the phones died. The test found that the iPhone X excuse me, I just choked when I said that. The iPhone XS Max using dark mode uses up significantly less battery than an iPhone XS Max using light mode. And when the light mode enabled iPhone SX Max died, the dark mode phone had still had 30% battery life remaining.
Yes, and this is not the only test like that, but do you know what the difference is between those models and some of the other models that in phones that we're familiar with?
No. Why
this makes such a difference? The 10 and the 10S series phones are OLED screens. The 10R is not.
Right.
It's still LCD. So the LCDs don't have the same impact by the tone, the overall brightness.
Oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. Of course, OLED.
OLEDs are off for black and on for white.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a backlight. It is the backlight. So that's why this is significant. This is true of AMOLED as well, as I understand it, though not to the same extent as with OLED. So on the OLED phones, you're going to get a lot more battery life in a dark mode or a dark theme than you would off of a LCD device. So That's why this is important, and this is a good indication of just how important that is.
you'll be able to save your battery, but not save your data with iOS 13.
Yeah, you'll not be able to save your sanity either.
And
Talking about saving, though, we have a story that comes to us from iMore about an Apple Watch that called 911. So James, and I'm not going to try to pronounce the last name, was on a date when he and Paige, his date, got lost in the woods and ended up on a steep cliff. Now, both of them actually fell from the cliff into the river, but his Apple Watch detected the hard fall and called 911 for him. So they credited it with saving his life.
here's what I really want to know. Did James and Paige go on a second date? This was their first date.
Well, I wanted to know that, and were they geocaching?
Oh.
They didn't. I didn't see anything. I didn't get a chance to poke around too much, but I didn't see anything that said why they were out there. And why else would you be out in the middle of the woods on a first date than to find geocaches, right?
I don't know. I'm scanning the article and it does not say anything about geocaching.
No.
Hiking in the woods, the two became lost in the woods before tripping over thorns, leaving them both stranded on a steep cliff.
Yeah, and I think it had even said, or maybe it was one of the other articles, that they had been stuck out there for hours.
Yeah.
They got really lost in the woods. So this is another good reason to let people know where you're going to be. But yeah, Apple Watch can be.
Maybe they're still dating because it says that James's watch also let his mother know where he was. And once mom comes and picks you up on your first date, that's it.
Well, it depends on the type of woman she is, I'm sure.
And
that could be attractive, he's got good values, his mom.
See, it shows he can commit to women.
Yeah, exactly.
This is your dating news from Geo Gearheads. Join us next week when we talk about what restaurant you should go to on your first date.
No.
Nowhere near the cliff, I'm just saying.
Let's cut this off, and why don't you take us into this big, long text that came in through the website from Data Wrangler.
Oh, boy. Data Wrangler, great username. Came in from the website. Looking at Project-GC the other day, I noticed that it contains a summary of souvenirs classified in 7 different groups. Following is each group with images of individual souvenirs along with the total number of achievers. As I looked at these souvenirs of the US states, I realized that the number of achievers represents the unique number of cachers, i.e. caching accounts, that has at least one find in those states. Because I like to play around with numbers, my caching name is Data Wrangler after all, I compared the ranks of the states by souvenirs achieved to the ranks of states by population. Obviously, residents are not the only ones who'll find a cache in their home states, but the comparison of rankings might reveal which states are more attractive to geocachers. California is the largest state by population and also has the largest souvenir achievers. Texas is the second largest state by population, but has only the third most geocache souvenir achievers. Florida, my home state, edges out Texas for the number of souvenir achievers accomplished, with less than 3/4 of the population. I attribute the difference to the fact that Florida attracts more visitors than Texas, the recent Geo Woodstock notwithstanding. The biggest positive beneficiary of geocaching tourism is Oregon, which is 11 places higher on the souvenir ranking than the population ranking. No surprise there. In descending order, the next largest beneficiaries are Utah, Nevada, Colorado, Wyoming, and Washington. I think it helps in the analysis to have smaller populations. On the other side, poor New Jersey is 13 spots lower on the souvenir ranking than its population ranking. And to break from the message, that's because nobody wants to go to New Jersey. You just make a wrong turn and you end up in New Jersey. And you figured, well, I'm here, I may as well get an extra state. Okay, back to Data Wrangler. Working backwards, there is Louisiana, Connecticut, Maryland, that's surprising to me, and Rhode Island. Finally, the average cacher who has cached in the United States has more than has fines in 2.2 states, a number that seemed low to me. Of course, this is a simplistic analysis, but when I start looking at the souvenirs, but it's a start when looking at souvenirs. Data Wrangler from Tallahassee, Florida.
Well, thanks for all that, Danny Wrangler. And he does give us a whole bunch of the numbers, but we're not going to go into that because, well, you know.
There's the whole yearly series in Maryland, Wooden Radio.
Ashaquat's Maryland, yeah.
Yeah. So that would, I think, pump up the numbers there in Maryland. And of course, Oregon, Washington State being, you know, the home base of geocaching, really, I think, provides extra numbers there.
Well, you didn't mention the weather in as a factor, which I think might make an impact on the numbers, but I don't want to really guess what that is.
Yeah, I love looking at numbers and crunching numbers like this. So thank you, Data Wrangler. I find that interesting.
Let's move on to some GPS news, though. And actually, this isn't GPS, but GNNS. In the Ignos Geo 3 satellite had a solar array problem. So this is more issues for the European GNNS agency. GSA is what they call themselves, for short at least. This time it's with their Geo 3 series satellites. And these are designed to be geostationary satellites to augment the GNSS signals. See, that's probably part of why we don't say GNSS very often. It's more of a tongue twister.
Well, any repeated acronym is difficult after a period of time.
Yes, especially this late at night for me. But it suffered an incident on one of the two solar arrays on the Eutelstat.
Eutelstat.
Okay, I'll go with that because I'm not going to try to repronounce it because I'm messing it up. 5 West B satellite. And this is a satellite that just launched in October 9th. Right. So another issue with launching on the GSAs, you know, and you might recall they've had a few problems with the Galileo constellation when one of them didn't hit a high enough orbit due to miscalculations, and it was a software issue. Basically, someone I think did feet instead of meters or something like that. So yeah,
that was right.
Yeah.
And you know, it's simple. Just send up Geek Squad and they'll fix it for you.
Right.
They make orbit calls.
All right. And the next one that we're going to do, and this is going to be the final one since we are starting to run long, comes to us from GPS World that the GPS 3 ground systems operations contingency program is nearing operational acceptance.
I accept it.
It's a big long headline. So the GPS Enterprise reached another major milestone on October 21st when the GPS 3 Contingency Operation Program, COPS, successfully connected with the first GPS 3 satellite in orbit. The COPS system will allow the Air Force to operationally command and control the new, more powerful GPS 3 satellite, as well as legacy GPS satellites currently in the constellation. The first GPS 3 satellite was launched on December 23rd, 2018. The GPS 3 COPS program achieved several successes in recent months. First, the program completed final ground control system software testing and verification in May 2019. This was followed by delivery to sustainment and final system test completion in June of 2019.
Can you imagine what they have to go through to get a new chunk of software to talk to the GPS satellites and, you know, verify?
I think this is more than software. I think this is a complete overhaul of the system.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think I remember seeing that, you know, they're talking all new everything, though I'm not betting that they're replacing the like actual satellite dishes and that kind of stuff. But, you know, as far as
change the transmission hardware, but
yeah, well, I think they are changing the transmission hardware, but they're not changing the antennas essentially. You know, this plugs in place of, so, you know, the rack of hardware that's behind those. But yeah, it's like the software and everything. this is the COPS system, as I understand it, and I could be wrong. So please, we'll call out
Correct
Limax
us if we're wrong.
Yeah, Limax will probably know because he's into this stuff. Let us know if I'm wrong, but I think that this is the control systems behind it for the guys at what was it? The Space Command. Second
SOPs. Space
Yeah.
Operations.
Yes.
Two SOPs.
Two SOPs. Space Operations. Yes. So yeah, this is like the system that those guys are going to use. So they're getting a big upgrade.
What does first Space Operations do?
We never found out. I think they played Space Invaders.
Oh yeah. This man's playing Galaga.
Oh man. Anyway, so yeah, this is a big step because until they got this stuff done, they can't bring the GPS 3 satellites into the constellation. So now that we have this, we have a good chance of seeing the satellite actually start sending real data to our GPSRs.
Do you want me to tell you what OneSOPS does?
Okay, what does OneSOPS do?
It is the premier organization for space-based situational awareness. Mission crews conduct 24-hour operations supporting three major functions: the satellite control, telemetry, tracking, and commanding of Air Force Space Command's only based SSA assets.
See, and for a minute I was thinking those are the guys that look for the little green men.
That must be the third SOPs.
It must be. They're the ones that play Space Invaders.
Third Space Operations Squadron is it's Shriver as well, to ensure reliable spaceborne communications to the President and Secretary of Defense of the U.S. and Allied forces.
Interesting. I wonder how big a team that is. It can't be small, but
you don't ask.
I would be surprised if the team isn't bigger than two SOPs.
There's a fourth.
Okay, what does the fourth do?
Is responsible for command and control of the Milstar Advanced Extremely High Frequency Defense Satellite Communications System Phase 3 and Wideband Global SATCOM satellite constellation.
I have no idea what that means.
No.
I'm assuming it's a communication system of some type.
They provide warfighters global, secure, survivable, strategic, and tactical communications during peacetime and through the full spectrum of conflict.
Oh.
They
So it's
also operate 3 mobile constellation control stations at various locations to conjuncture with host partners.
Okay.
That
is there a 5?
Makes sense, but I don't know. I haven't Googled that yet.
5 might actually be the guys who deal with the space plane, that Boeing space plane that just landed again.
Okay, so you have the 5th Expeditionary Space Operations Squadron.
Ooh.
They assign to Air Force bases as needed. The 5th SOPS rose out of the rich history of the Air Force Satellite Control Facility. The squadron was provision. Let's see. Let me get what it does. Okay. In late 93, the squadron flawlessly launched a DSCS-3 and a NATO-4 communication satellite, supported NASA's Hubble telescope repair, and activated as the 5th Space Operations Squadron.
Okay. So who is operating the space planes? I wonder if that's not even part of...
No, that's the Space Force.
Well, the Space Force hadn't even been created when the plane went up.
There's the 6th Space Operations.
Well, I'm wondering if that's coming out of what's it called? The Area 51 team. That I can't remember the name.
The 6th Space Operation provides backup command and control center for the Defense Meteorological Satellite Program, the DMSP, and is the longest running production satellite program ever. there you go. I could go on, but I'm not going to because I don't know. They're part of the 310th Space Wing. Isn't that fun to say?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So I've got to look up this space plane thing. It's the X-37B.
Oh yes. Did they call it the Aurora?
Well, it just landed after 780 days in orbit. This is the 5th X-37B.
Does it mention that it's a scramjet?
Not in this article. Okay, so it's the Air Force Research Laboratory that operates it.
I mean, it looks like a shuttle.
It does, but it's a UAV.
Mm-hmm.
There's no people in this, and it can't even support people. But I believe it does have configurable payloads. And the thing is not very big.
Well, it's 120% scaled derivative of the Boeing X-40. But you already knew that.
No, I didn't actually.
Oh, I just happened to read that, so
I kind of figured. But yeah, that's kind of exciting. And everyone kind of is wondering what exactly this is, since it's Air Force. And my impression, again, don't know if it's right or wrong, but from what I've heard, it's pretty much going to be surveillance, because it's a lot easier to move these things around than it is a satellite.
The X-37 was originally designed to be carried into orbit by the space shuttle's cargo bay, but underwent redesign for launch on a Delta IV.
Yeah. But the whole point is you launch this thing, and because it is a plane rather than a satellite, it's easier to move the thing around in space. And I think it can go lower as well. So it makes it a better platform for cameras. And therefore, they can use this instead of the SR-71s and the U-2s, that kind of stuff. I'm not into it that much anymore. I used to be into some of that kind of stuff when I was younger, but
yeah,
I have better things to do.
The Aurora, that's a different vehicle.
But yeah, so I wouldn't worry about it. I don't think they're weaponizing space. That's basically what it comes down to.
These are not ramjets. These are aerojets or scramjets.
Scramjets?
These are,
which is, I think, what you said.
Yeah.
Which are interesting. So if it's a scramjet, it can't actually get into the higher orbits.
No, it can get into low Earth orbit.
Right. Yeah, so definitely this is going to be a better platform than a satellite would be for, getting pictures of that Chernobyl disaster area or something like that. Fukushima. Which they have to do.
4, 5, 6 of them.
They have 5. This was the 5th one that landed, so I wouldn't be surprised if they have more of them, but this is the first one to be up there for 2 years straight. So more than 2 years, actually. But we are approaching that hour mark, so we're going to let you guys go.
I find things like this fascinating.
I do, and we get down into these rat holes, and there's more that we were going to talk about, but we ran out of time. But next week, November 7th, is going to be episode 410, and that's going to be talking about the Adventure Labs with Kev MacD. So that's going to be a good one. And Chris, thank you for hooking us up with him.
Oh,
and
you're welcome.
That's one you're going to watch on video, because he's going to give us a look into how those are built.
Kev MacD is amazing.
Then on November 14th, episode 411, we're going to give you information, I guess. I didn't even realize until just now that it's 411 about the needs maintenance and needs archived logging. And we're going to have GSM times 2 on there for that one, because, well, he kind of got stuck with that because he's the one who suggested we do that show.
Be careful what you ask for, because we'll turn around and ask you to be on the show.
Yep. See how that works?
Daryl, what are we doing for episode 420?
We have not gotten that far yet.
I couldn't resist.
I kind of figured we'd just take the day off.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry we couldn't figure out how to start the broadcast. So,
hey, folks, I know you can't wait till that episode, but until then, make sure you check the Cachamaniacs website at cachamaniacs.com for more on the Geo Gearheads, including show notes from this and all of our episodes. You know what I'm going to say. We love hearing from our listeners. So leave us feedback by emailing geogearheads at cachamaniacs.com or through the many channels that is social media. Your support helps keep the Cachamaniac shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachamaniac shows. Geo Gearheads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. The show's copyright 2019 by Daryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.
Cash with a Cachamaniac.